Hello, I'm Paulette Wally, Regional Office Manager for the Division of Child Care Services, Rochester Regional Office. The pyramid model is a framework for implementation of practices needed to promote all young children's social and emotional competence.
It's nice to see you today.
Implementing it in your program can help curb challenging behaviors and set all children up for success in school and life. During this video conference, we'll describe the pyramid model. Then we'll show you specific techniques you can use in your program to build children's social, emotional skills and reducing challenging behaviors. The New York State Office of Children and Family Services applauds your efforts to provide the children in your care with experiences to help them learn and grow socially and emotionally.
Hello and welcome to tonight's New York State Office of Children and Family Services video conference training, Addressing Challenging Behavior, the Pyramid Model in Action. I'm Colleen Farragon. Children are constantly trying to figure out the world around them. If they don't have key social emotional skills to effectively express themselves and communicate, they can get frustrated and in turn exhibit challenging behavior. That's why it's important for us to understand that all behavior is a form of communication and spend time throughout each day teaching positive social skills. Now, by the end of this training, you will be able to describe the pyramid model and explain why it works and implement a few different pyramid model strategies to help children learn social emotional skills. The information we're sharing with you tonight is rooted in the philosophy, research, theory, and practice of the pyramid model, a sound framework of evidence-based practices to promote the social and emotional competence in early care and education systems. Now, using the pyramid model in your program can help address challenging behavior before it starts and better support the families in your program. The pyramid model is a tiered model that promotes the development of all children by providing a framework for a broad range of interventions and approaches. It promotes young children's social emotional competence and effectively addresses challenging behavior. So what does this mean? Well, let's go to Rob Corso, the Executive Director of the Pyramid Model Consortium, an entity that is working with 26 other states to implement the pyramid model, for a more detailed explanation of all of the components of the model.
The pyramid model was created under a federal center called the Center on Social Emotional Foundations for Early Learning, or CSEFEL, and is basically a public health model or a tiered intervention for how to think about supporting infants and young children's social emotional development. The pyramid itself is built on the foundation of the effectiveness of the workforce, meaning we have these practices we know work, but they're only as good as the workforce actually using those practices. The bottom tier of the pyramid, or universal, basically says what we want for all kids in New York. We want all kids to be in nurturing and responsive relationships. We want them to be attached. We want them to have positive caregiving experiences, and that's for all kids. Similarly, for all kids, we want them to be in high-quality environments, whether that's in a child care program or early Head Start or Head Start program, or at home. We want to make sure they're in high-quality environments. The middle level of the pyramid, or the second tier of the pyramid, is about teaching strategies that we expect for young children. Some kids seem to make friends easy. Some kids regulate their emotions, problem solve. Other kids, not so much. We need to teach them those skills, and that's just part of early childhood education, what we expect. And that doesn't mean they have challenging behaviors. It just means we have to teach them these social skills.
Oh, you can both hold on to the same scarf?
At the top of the pyramid, or the tertiary tier, is an acknowledgement that even under the best of early childhood programs, there's going to be some need to individualize instruction, whether that's because of challenging behavior or dual language learning or disability, or just the unique learning needs of children that we're going to have to individualize. So the pyramid framework is a framework that is this multi-tiered system of what do we want for all kids, the universal tier. the middle of the pyramid to be intentional about teaching skills that children might not yet have, and the top tier being making sure we're able to individualize when children have some unique learning needs.
So let's meet our guests, Patty Purcell and Mackenzie Albert. Patty is the New York State Head Start Collaboration Director at the Council on Children and Families. She's the co-chair of the New York State Pyramid Model Leadership Team, a group of professionals representing state agencies and early childhood organizations that have come together to support the social emotional competence in New York State's young children by rolling out the pyramid model to all who work with children from birth to kindergarten and their families. And Mackenzie is a special education teacher and the teaching pyramid coordinator at her program, Rochester Child First Network. She has seen firsthand what implementing the pyramid model practices will do for a classroom to address challenging behaviors. She's also a New York State Pyramid Model Master Cadre trainer. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's get started. And Patty, why does the pyramid model work?
Well, I think it works because it's relatively easy to do. The strategies are not, rocket science. They're things that anyone who works with children, any parent, any teacher, anyone who cares for children can start to play with and try and use. And kids tend to respond to them very quickly.
And anything that we should be keeping in mind when we begin the pyramid model process?
I think to keep in mind it's not a quick fix, that it's really about building relationships with the children and families. So you don't wait till there's a problem and then say, let's try some of that pyramid model stuff. This really is setting the tone in the classroom with, like Rob was saying, the foundation of getting your needs met first as an adult in the room, making sure you have all the supports that you need, and then also reaching out to the families and the children so you have relationships with them in case something challenging does arise. You already have some positive groundwork there.
And what's interesting too is that you have to really take some time and focus on yourself, identifying your own hot buttons.
Yes. Yes, you do have to identify your hot buttons because being self-aware and being aware of what your practices are as an adult and what pushes your buttons from a child is very imperative in your ability to use the strategies effectively.
Yeah. And that reframing is so important that we need to do.
Absolutely.
The New York State daycare regulations are the requirements child care programs need to follow to provide high-quality care and maintain business. We frequently refer to the regulations during our trainings by reading them and showing them as a graphic on the screen. Well, we recently received some feedback that this can disrupt the flow of the training, so we're going to try something different this evening. Instead of the regulation being read to you, it will simply appear on the screen. Now, we're going to spend the majority of our time tonight focusing on the second tier of the pyramid, teaching strategies we can use to help children develop social emotional skills. But before we get there, let's briefly discuss the other tiers, starting with Tier 1, which focuses on nurturing and responsive relationships and high-quality, supportive environments. So why is it important to start with those relationships and environments?
It's the foundation for everything. So children need to feel safe and secure in their environment before they can learn or do anything new. So knowing that the family feels trusting in the staff and the teachers that are supporting their children while they're at work or away from them, that can really just set the tone for everything else that comes next.
The Center on Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning, or CSEFEL, has developed a tool called the Inventory of Practice for Promoting Social Emotional Competence. That is, it is designed to be used by individuals and or teams to identify training needs and plan a course of action to address needs relating to 4 general areas. They are building positive relationships, creating supportive environments, social emotional teaching strategies, and individualized intensive interventions. So how will using this inventory help us with children who are exhibiting challenging behaviors? And
Right.
we're going to kind of walk through this too.
Sure. Well, I think the idea is you're looking at an inventory of practice as an adult. So we're not looking at inventorying the child's skills. We're really seeing, where am I in this inventory of practice? And so how is my classroom? Is it arranged in a way that children can find things, put things away easily without a lot of nagging by the adults? Do the children feel like it's their space, or are they kind of visiting a grown-up space, and are they a little bit afraid that they might put something away wrong or get in trouble for touching something? So the inventory of practice is just a concrete way for each staff person to really look at themselves. It's a self-assessment to see, where am I? It takes the temperature for the space and the environment and how you've set up the materials, and it goes on from there.
Okay, well, the inventory is a tool best used in a manner that encourages this self-reflection and discussion. So let's take a minute to walk through a section of the inventory. And we have a graphic of a page of the inventory that discusses designing supportive environments. So Patty, can you walk us through how we would use it in relation to number 6, which is ensures smooth transitions?
Sure.
Which is a challenge.
It can be, absolutely. Anytime any of us transition from one thing to another, it can be a time of upset. So imagine 17 4-year-olds trying to move from one activity to another. So I think the idea of the inventory is to see, are there places I could improve? Could I give kids more options or choices? Can I do it in a way that's more organized? Even when we move adults onto an airplane or something, people like to know, is it group A that's boarding now or group B? And so just knowing what comes next, letting children have a warning, and also giving them some control. Maybe it is a ticket in the beginning, especially if they're studying transportation and they can pretend like they're boarding a plane. So there's so many fun ways to do a transition that makes sense to children and gives them something to look forward to, instead of an opportunity to sort of get discombobulated and run all around the room.
Sure. And what do we do with the inventory? So once we've decided, once we've completed it, where do we go next?
I mean, I would say bite it off in little bits. It can be very overwhelming. So choose an area that's of most interest to you, something you feel like maybe isn't quite working great in your classroom. And then you can see where you need some supports. So then you would look to your administration or other trainers to bring in what you feel like you're missing or could improve upon.
Okay, and we put together this action plan and also date of completion, kind of celebrate, you're going through these steps.
Absolutely. Just like the children are learning new skills, the adults are also learning new skills. And so to really celebrate the small accomplishments. If like, let's say you're going to work on greeting every child by name when they arrive in the morning. If you greet half the class on the first day, that's a huge accomplishment. So, be very proud of small steps in the right direction.
Right. Well, you can find directions on how to access the inventory of practice in the resource section of the handouts. Now let's move on to Tier 3 of the pyramid model, the intervention tier, which focuses on meeting individual children's behavior needs through the use of positive behavior support, or PBS. So how do we know when we need to use Tier 3 approaches with a child?
Well, it means you've tried everything. And everybody says that a lot of the time, and they don't really mean it, because part of it is making sure you have a positive relationship with the family. You've looked at all other elements of the child's development, their health. You've really kind of turned over every stone to see what's causing this. Is it something that the environment could fix? And if it isn't, let's say you've truly tried everything and you do have a positive relationship with the child and with the family, then you realize there are some kids at the top of the pyramid. Everything is in place, the table is set, but yet something is just missing. And so those children need a little more than just trying to teach them the skills, which we've tried to do. And so this would be a child who needs maybe an individual schedule. So the group schedule, the classroom schedule is too broad. So this child might need something that really gets them through circle time on its own card or a little book. Okay. So a visual cue just for that child.
Okay. So let's kind of look or break down a little bit how Tier 3 works.
Sure. I mean, I think it takes a team approach, and so it's very important to know you're not just going to make this up on your own, or that you're on your own in all of this. There are behavior specialists, preschool behavior specialists, that can help you and work as a team with the parent there, and often involve the child as well, really asking them what frustrates you so much at circle time that is causing this problem. And the kid might have a lot of insight that could help the whole group figure things out. Teachers can also do a tally where you're really keeping track of when behaviors are at their worst. And so you can start to see, was there something that came before that that maybe triggered this behavior? Is it something we're doing? You know, maybe the lights are too bright in the certain classroom or something like that. So really being a detective with the other people who work with that child and the family to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and Mackenzie, what about the upside down pyramid?
So when I train Module 3 for teachers and administrators, I like to give them a visual of turning the pyramid upside down and thinking about all of the kids at the top, at the base, what would be the base. And so it acts like a filter. So all the kids are at the top, and then you have your nurturing and responsive relationships. And there are a few kids that stay right there and their challenging behaviors reduce. And then you have the children that need the high quality supportive environments and their challenging behaviors reduced. And then you have the targeted social and emotional supports, and your kids fall into that space. And then you have the small handful of kids, that's probably 1 to 3 kids, where with all of these steps put in place, they're still having challenging behaviors that's interfering with their ability to learn and their ability to socialize with their peers. And those are the kids that may need the kind of special education, mental health, behavior specialist team intervention.
Yeah, because that's the point where we need to help families identify these resources. So let's kind of break that down. What resources should we be referring families to in these situations?
Well, I think they need to know they're not alone, right? So if it is truly a special education need, we would help them with the referral process, and they could go through that, not alone, again, with, you know, a supportive group. We're not handing them off or, you know, kicking them out of anything. We're really trying to make sure they have the supports they need. And then if they do indeed get services, the services follow the child. The child doesn't have to leave the center or the family child care home. The services can come to where the child is.
And let's break down those services for information for people. So if a child is under 3, where do they go?
They're going to call their county and ask for an early intervention evaluation with the county.
And then children over 3, what's the process?
They're going to be referred to their school board.
Okay.
In their school district.
Right. And again, we can guide families and be that supportive connection for them. And there's lots of resource materials too, the New York State Early Learning Guidelines, that helps to really provide and inform information for staff, providers, and families. Children exhibit challenging behavior for many reasons. Maybe they don't have the language to appropriately express themselves or their emotions. Maybe they don't have the social skills to ask a friend to share or to play with them. Maybe they're dealing with a loss or a change at home and they don't know how to tell you about it or cope with it. Well, that's why it's vital that you take some time to get to know the child and figure out what is behind the challenging behavior. What purpose or function does it serve the child? Many times the child is bored, scared, wants to avoid something, is frustrated, or needs attention, even if it's negative attention. So, how do we help this child?
Well, it's very important to figure out what they're trying to communicate. That's first and foremost. And if it's something like attention, then give it to them. Regardless of whether or not they're, continue to engage in that challenging behavior, you're going to try to catch them when they're doing the right thing. And you're really going to try to give them that positive reinforcement. Even when they just listen for maybe 2 seconds, it's still, I heard you, you listened to what I said, and you went to the carpet. So making sure that you're always giving them what they need, regardless of whether they're still engaging in the challenging behavior.
And we're really acting as a detective to kind of figure this out, right? Mm-hmm.
Constantly, Patty alluded to this a little bit earlier, but thinking about if there's a specific time of day that the child might be focusing on a specific challenging behavior. When we focused on the inventory of practices discussing transitions, that can be very difficult for some children. However, implementing small strategies like giving them an individual warning for when it's time to line up to go outside might help to reduce that challenging behavior if you notice that that's something that they engage in prior to going outside.
And that family connection is really critical, finding ways to connect with the family, maybe do a home visit if that's possible. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when families know that you're on their side, they're often more likely to open up and really share with what's going on. I think when families feel that the school or the center is angry with them or disappointed in their child's behavior, it only makes things worse. And so we do want to bridge that gap and really let families know that we're in this too, and we care about your child, we care about you, and we're going to work together so that that feeling of dread when the school calls is eliminated, and we really see it as a chance to work together.
And we need the information, so we have to observe and document. Why are these findings so important with this work?
Well, you base your strategies on your findings. So if your strategies aren't working, then you need to take another look at your findings. And you might need to take another look at the data that you have, and it might be able to tell you a different kind of a picture. So again, we're always going to be looking for what their behavior is trying to communicate.
And then once we know, or we think we know, the why, what happens next?
That's when you create a plan. So you have a team of people where you create a plan and you talk about strategies that you can implement. It might be something like a visual schedule, an individualized visual schedule. It can be, during this transition at this specific time of day, A, B, C, and D need to happen. And teacher A needs to do A, B, C, and D. So it can be as specific as that, or it could be, I need Patty to go and remember that he has to have his coat out of his cubby before he lines up, otherwise that's a trigger for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's too crowded by the cubbies. Something as simple as that.
Too much.
So we put his coat on the back of a chair, he picks it up himself, puts it on, and goes out.
So I imagine you have to test the plans,
Yeah, you're not always right the first time. Like, we're grown-ups, we don't know everything. So we have to try a few things and involve the child. And just like you are when you're learning a new sport or a new strategy for, whatever it is that you're interested in, you're not always perfect the first day.
Right. Well, now it is time for an activity session. We're going to be doing a lot of activities this evening that will help you bring some of the strategies that we talk about to life in your program. We want you to start out by thinking about a child in your program who presents a challenging behavior, so you can maybe begin to understand the why behind the behavior and formulate a plan of action. You will refer back to this child and the behavior when completing many of tonight's activities. Next, write down some information about that child on the Challenging Behavior Questionnaire activity sheet, such as what challenging behaviors does the child exhibit, when does the child exhibit these behaviors, and is there a certain activity, transition, or time of day that seems to trigger the behaviors. Also take time to think about what else do you think contributes to the behavior, and what sort of positive attention does this child receive on a regular basis. Now, when we return, we'll begin examining specific Tier 2 strategies that you can use with children in your program that will increase their social emotional competence, which can help curb challenging behaviors. We'll see you soon. Welcome back. The Center on the Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning, or CSEFEL, has many resources and practical strategies on their website that you can use with children every day to help reduce challenging behaviors. We'll be introducing you to several of them this evening, and one of them is the use of visual cues. And Mackenzie, what do we mean by visual cues?
Visual cues are actually one of my most favorite strategies to implement within the pyramid model. Visual cues are picture cues that children can look at and can be paired with 1 to 2 words to get them to reference what it is that you would like them to do. So this would be a great example. This is an example of an arrival routine. So the child comes and arrives at school. Their first step is to take off their coat. And so they would take their coat off, put it in their cubby, and then they would take it off and put it in the all done jar.
Nice.
Their next step is to wash their hands. They go wash their hands, take it off, and it's in the all done jar. Eat snack, all done, and then you can reset it for the next routine within the day.
That's great. And, as adults, we have our visual cues, too, that we use. We have reminders on our cell phone. We have lists and all these things. So for children to start off, what a great foundation-building experience for them as they continue to grow. So let's really break it down. So you showed us this great example, but why do they work? Why do visual cues work?
I think sometimes as grown-ups we'll give children directions and we don't necessarily realize how many components lie within those directions. So having something as simple as visual cues not only help the children but also help the adults be able to break down what it is they expect that child to do. In a lot of cases, we tend to have higher expectations for our children than how they actually behave, and then usually that creates a problem. So if we're expecting our 4-year-olds to behave like 6-year-olds, it's going to create a problem.
And by having the expectations clearly laid out, you know, the picture, the words, here's what we need to do, it probably lessens opportunities for negotiating. That kind of back and forth really sets children up to succeed.
Yeah, and it gives them more control, so it's less of the adult. Sometimes anyone who tells you to do something, it just makes you almost want to do the opposite, right? Grown-ups too. And so having that opportunity to be successful all on your own, it's a boost for your self-esteem, and it just helps the day go smoother.
So when should we use visual cues?
You can use visual cues throughout any aspect of your daily routine, all day, every day. There are children that will need more visual cues than others. Your visual cues can be something as simple as your visual schedule within your classroom and using that within the whole group.
Yeah, we're going to talk about visual schedules in a little bit. I'm curious though, does the age of the children influence the type of visual cues we're using with them?
Yes, it's always going to be differentiated for the child's skill level. If you have a 3-year-old child who is at a 18-month developmental level, their visual cue is going to look different than the 4-year-old who's in your other class, who's at a typically developing level. So you might pair a word with the picture versus just the picture.
And sometimes having the child's photo doing the activity successfully is enough to be the cue, and they feel very proud that it's, you know, they're sort of on display.
Yeah, it's them. That's a big deal.
Putting
And we're
on
going
their
to show
coat.
some examples of that in a little bit as well. Throughout tonight, you'll see some of the different strategies we're talking about implemented by different providers and children in childcare settings. Let's start by taking a look at how some providers are using visual cues with children.
Eyes are watching, listening and focusing on what the teacher is saying. You need to get her attention so she has their attention. We would say eyes are watching, ears are listening, bodies are calm, and mouths are quiet. Just to get so that we can have the children's attention while we're working at a table or at a project or a large group or small group.
Whose turn is it now?
Your turn.
Oh, it's my turn? Can I pick up?
What?
We're doing your turn, my turn. So this is my turn. I can use the roller. It is your turn. Now you can use the roller. We're working on that as well. It is your turn, Elijah. Would you like to use the roller? Would you like to see? It's your turn. You can use the roller. Would you like to make the Play-Doh flat? Is it my turn or your turn? My turn? Okay, it is my turn. I can make this flat.
So we want to talk a little bit more about the binder clip that we saw in there. And we have an example here. Tell us more about it. Tell us how it's used.
So these are very simple. They're very simple to make using a hole punch and a key ring. A lot of us who work in early childhood wear a lanyard. They're easily attached to the lanyard, which means they're easily accessible. You can flip really quickly through the pictures. And as you get to know your visual cues and what order they're in, you're able to show the child which cue you're looking for quicker. So these are just a really great tool to use on the punch. You can take them to the playground, you can take them to the bathroom, you can take them to the block area or the toy area. Some of the teachers in our classrooms actually have them hanging up on the wall throughout the areas within the classroom.
And then the children just get used to using them. They're around. What are some other examples of visual cues that we can use?
All right, visual cues, you can make examples of the visual schedule that's within your classroom. You can also have visual cues of how to ask a friend to play. So if you're trying to highlight friendship skills, you can do something as if, oh, look, you can tap your friend on the shoulder. You can say hi. You can give them a hug. My daughter was in a 3-year-old class and she had a friend that she loved to greet. However, he was a little bit reluctant on how he wanted to be greeted.
Okay.
Her teacher made a visual choice for him to tell her how he wanted to be greeted every day. So he came in and was dropped off by his mother, and he would choose a wave, a hug, or a high five. And he would choose it and give it to her, and that would be how he would be greeted by her.
That is great. What a wonderful way to work together.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I'm thinking too, I've been in some classrooms where they use stop sign at the door. Tell us, what's that all about?
Stop signs at the door are used for many purposes, usually for safety. We have a lot of classrooms at RCN, and some of them don't have doors. So we use stop signs to give those children a visual cue to know where they have to stop. It's also, if the door is open, they know where to stop to line up when they're outside.
Okay. Well, one specific type of visual cue you might already be using to help teach children routines is a visual schedule, which shows the step of an activity through pictures. And we've mentioned it, and let's really get into it. What do these types of schedules teach children?
They teach them the sequence of the day. So first we're going to come in and we're all going to sit down and have breakfast. And then after breakfast is all done, we're going to sit down on the carpet for greeting time. And then we'll have a small group planning, work time, recall. So they have a really great, predictable, sequenced picture of how their day is supposed to look.
Well, a child should be able to answer the following questions when using a visual schedule. What am I supposed to be doing? How do I know that I'm making progress? How do I know when I'm done? And what will happen next? So what should we do if a child can't answer the questions?
Well, sometimes it's they haven't been taught, right? We can't just put up a schedule and say everybody's going to know exactly what to do. So like how to use the schedule could be one. And for some children, the pictures aren't enough. So perhaps they also need, especially for a very popular activity, like let's say the computer, if they're finally got their turn and their turn is starting to get to an end, having a timer that counts down or sand through an hourglass, egg timer kind of thing.
They can see it.
They can see it. And so some kids, the digital timer is not enough because it's going fast and they're not paying that much attention, but you can really see the sand falling through the hourglass. So it's this opportunity to prepare yourself for what comes next.
I would imagine getting the children involved, depending where they are developmentally, to help create the visual schedule. Is there a benefit to that?
Yes, if you take pictures of the children in your classrooms engaging in all of the activities that are part of your day, they begin to own that. They have ownership of it, and they're proud of that, and that's me, and I'm doing that, and I'm doing work time, and I'm doing center time, or I'm having snack, or I'm cleaning up. So they'd have ownership of that, and they have a sense of pride when they feel that.
So many programs have schedules for the group, but can visual schedules also be used for individual children?
Yes, very much so. You don't even necessarily have to be as specific with a visual schedule. You could just do first then, expecting children to do this first, and then when they're done doing that, then they can do this, which is usually something that they would prefer versus not preferred.
Okay. What about for families? A good tool to be used at home?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, we all do.
Well, and having that team approach and talking about building nurturing and responsive relationships is not just with our kids in our classrooms and at our family childcare, but also with our families, and having those relationships and creating those relationships so that we know that if the family is struggling with their bedtime routine, maybe we need to think about creating a schedule. What does bedtime look like? Well, we're going to take a bath, we're going to brush our teeth, we're going to read a book, and then we're going to go to bed. And those are such simple visuals to make, and with Velcro and a manila folder.
We can really help the families kind of put this together.
And it reduces all that negotiation at bedtime because it's like, look, the cards come off the chart. We know that that's it. And it really helps the parents stick to the routine.
That's great. Well, let's take a look at how some providers use different visual schedules to communicate what's happening throughout their day.
seem like you're excited. Are you excited?
Yeah, you can sit back down.
How did I know you were excited, Jordan?
Because I love to.
You love to because you were jumping up and down and you were excited to be up here to help me, right? So help me. What do we need to do? I'm looking, I'm looking at the board. I'm looking, I'm looking at the board. I wonder, I wonder what it says. I wonder, I wonder what it says. Message. Message number 1. What shape is it? Circle. What kind of circle should we make?
A smaller circle.
Oh, a smaller circle. Smaller circle. Should we make? Boop. We got it, right? A circle. Today is Thursday. Today is Thursday. Everybody say Thursday. Right, Thursday. Today is Thursday. Thursday. Okay, what do we do? What's our next one? Message number 2. Message number 2. And what is our shape around number 2? A square. That's right, a square. I wonder if we can make a square with our finger. Go down, across, up, and across. A square. Oh, what type of weather do we have today? Is it rainy, dark and gray? Is it cold or is it hot? Should I wear a hat or not? Oh, what type of weather do we have today? Okay, so we need to go on to message number 3. Can you touch your knee? 3 and knee. Knee 3. What happens with knee and 3? It rhymes. It does. It sounds the same. Very good. All right, we're going to talk about our rules. You ready? What are our rules today?
Listening ears.
Oh, can I see listening ears?
And buttons of time.
All right, and when we go to work time, what do we need to do? Plan, play, and put away. Oh, give yourself an air high five. Ready? Great job, great job. On to number 4. And what is our shape there?
A rectangle.
A rectangle. Okay, how many days do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many days have we been in school? Oh my gosh, is that a lot or is that a little? It is a lot.
Dallas, when it was time, when you heard the timer, did you stop playing? Did you pick up the toys? Did you put them in the bin? And did you put them on the shelf? Nice job.
You telling my mommy?
I will tell your mommy.
Oh, it's great. So we just heard that little guy at the end say, "Will you tell my mommy?" Talk about the importance of that moment.
It's so important to let parents know about the little moments. I think that as adults, we sometimes can put our kids within the good day and the bad day. And they don't necessarily have a bad day. They have a couple of bad moments within their day, but it doesn't make the whole day bad. So I think one of the goals that we have implementing this model is for our teachers and caregivers to really put some thought into what makes a good day and what makes a bad day. And sometimes it's not about the day in a whole, because there's something good that happened with that child that day, every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they want to share it.
And they want to share it, and they're so proud of themselves when they succeed.
And that's how you build a positive relationship, sharing good things.
Right, absolutely. All right, so we have some other ideas for how to make and use visual schedules. So here's a binder that was put together. Walk us through this, Mackenzie.
So this is 4 portions of the daily routine. So the first portion is we play inside.
Right, and we talked about the idea of using photos of the actual children. So here's an example. And then you open the binder, and then there's a little envelope, plastic envelope, if you can hold that for me. And so the children can then just slide it in as we go through each step. And then next, So it shows us 1, and then we know 2. So what are we doing next?
Next, they're getting ready to go play outside.
Okay, so we're getting ready. We've done that. We've done this. Somebody pulls it off. We open the binder. It tells us play outside, number 2, and we slide it in. And we keep going throughout the day.
Yes.
Okay.
And using the photographs can help children at a different developmental level because it gives them something really concrete. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's my friends doing this task.
Okay. Lots of good ideas. Amazing, amazing. So now it's time, though, for another activity session. Think about specific ways you could use visual cues and visual schedules in your program to help the child you thought about in the first activity. Write these ideas down on your activity sheet and share them with others at your site if there's time. And there is information about visuals and visual schedules in your handout materials on page 12 to 17 that you can reference during the activity session. And when we return, we'll continue our discussion of specific social emotional tools that you can use with children to reduce challenging behaviors. See you soon. Welcome back. Rules or expectations of social situations are typically learned by example. A tool you can use with children when they are struggling with a specific social issue is a scripted story. So what is a scripted story? And Mackenzie, you're like, yeah, I can't wait to tell you.
Scripted stories is a great tool that you can use to individualize for your children what kind of skills you want them to learn. So if you have a child where you're really focusing on them building their friendship skills and interacting with peers to ask them if they want to play, a scripted story is a great tool for that. It just gives them a breakdown with picture cues of how they would be able to ask a friend to play.
Well, scripted stories can help children understand social interactions, situations, and expectations, social cues, the script of unfamiliar activities, and/or social rules. So how do they help children or help with challenging behaviors?
So, go ahead.
Oh, well, it just gives them a chance to, in an unthreatening way, to figure out what would they do if it was you. So, I remember taking small children to a nursing home to sing at Christmas time. And the kids didn't know what to do when people said, like, thank you for coming, or you're so beautiful. And so before we went, we practiced. What do you do when somebody comes over and thanks you for singing? So you could say this, you could say Merry Christmas, whatever it was. And that way the kids just felt confident and they knew what to do, because we all feel like that in new situations.
Yeah. So when can we use them? So Patty, you gave us an example. When else?
You can use them for new situations. So if you have a child who's going to start taking a different bus, you might use it for something like that. Oh, I have a bus today. My new bus driver's name is Bob. Bob is going to take me to school, and then he's going to take me back to Miss Karen's house. So it gives them some context for them to understand what's expected of them, what's going to come next, so that they have something that they can rely on.
So then is it best used with groups of children or individual?
It can be used with both. I would suggest with small groups or with individual children. Sometimes the message can get a bit lost with a large group, but it is something that you could definitely try.
So what are some examples maybe that we would use with a larger group?
Large group settings for scripted stories would be something like if you're trying to teach the group about play skills, how to share, how to ask a friend to play.
So really about their classroom community or in the provider's home. What about scripted stories with individuals?
It would be something that's a little bit more specific. So if you had a child who, for instance, gave everybody a hug, it would be, how can I greet my friends in the morning when I come to school? I can give them a hug, or I can give them a high five, or I can wave.
Okay. There is an example of a scripted story about using the turtle technique on pages 19 through 23 of your handouts. And Mackenzie, first, can you explain what the turtle technique is?
So the turtle technique is used for children to control their anger and impulse and solve problems. First, you would stop, and then you go into your shell and you calm yourself, and you think about your problem and think about the solution, and then you come out and you talk about it.
So it really breaks it down for children into these 4 steps. Well, So we don't have time to read the whole story, but Mackenzie, we made some cards for you, and we want you to demonstrate for us how you would use this with young children. So, shortened version, go ahead. And Patty and I are going to participate.
Okay. All right, my friends, we are going to read a story today about our friend Tucker Turtle. Tucker Turtle is a terrific turtle. He likes to play with his friends at Wet Lake School. Do you guys like to play with your friends?
Oh, I like to play with my friends.
Wow, what kinds of things do you guys like to play with your friends?
Oh, I love Play-Doh.
I like outside time.
Ooh, Play-Doh and outside time, those are great activities to play with your friends. Let's see what happens next. But sometimes things happen that can make Tucker really mad. Can you guys show me your mad faces? Oh, I'm so mad. Oh, wow. I wonder what made Tucker so mad. Let's find out. When Tucker got mad, he used to hit, kick, or yell at his friends. His friends would get mad or upset when he hit, kicked, or yelled at them. Oh, I wonder how his friends felt. Mad and upset. Oh, that must have hurt. What do you do when you get mad?
I slam the door.
Oh, slamming the door. Sometimes that happens.
I push my friend.
Oh, let's see if we can move on and see what Tucker does so that he can help with what he does when he gets mad.
Thanks, Mackenzie. We got to give her an air high five, right? So any tips for providers to remember when using scripted stories with children? So you just kind of took it, you just kind of walked through with the children. What are some tips?
It's really important to try to get them to associate it with their life and what they do and their actions so that they're able to really integrate it into themselves and to think about how they're acting and what impact their actions might have on others. It helps create a sense of empathy. Mm-hmm. So creating that context for them to associate it with their life is very important. And it's just by asking open-ended questions about what they like, who they play with, what they do when they might feel mad.
And to make them work, we have to use them often. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have to practice them. It's not this one-time thing.
Yes, they have to be intentionally taught. It's also very important. This would be something difficult to implement if a child is hitting, kicking, and yelling because they're mad. It's very important to implement things like that when children are calm and receptive.
Okay. And you pointed out, too, small groups at first, especially. So, letting kids have that chance to really talk it through and offer their ideas. It was only 2 of us, and we're grown-ups. So really giving kids a chance to have some one-on-one time, especially the first time you read through a new story.
Right. Well, on the CSEFEL website, there are many examples of scripted stories that you can use. But you may be looking for advice on how to write a scripted story that is tailored to a specific child's need. Let's go to this video for more information on how to write a scripted story, which can be found on page 18 of your handout materials.
Scripted stories are a wonderful tool to help children learn the rules or expectations of various social situations. Here is some advice for writing your own scripted story. Begin by observing the child in the situation you are addressing. Maybe it's running in the classroom, maybe it's transitioning from outdoor play to indoors, or maybe it's getting on the bus to go on a field trip. Try to take on the child's perspective and include aspects of his or her views or feelings in the story. In the example of riding the bus, maybe the child is nervous about who he will sit with. Maybe he's scared because he gets car sick. Maybe he's afraid the bus will break down. Or maybe the bus is just too noisy for his liking. Be sure to include usual occurrences in the social situation, clear expectations, and the perspective of others. Let's go back to the bus example. Make sure to include usual occurrences, such as holding the railing when getting on or off the bus, saying hello and thank you to the driver, walking down the center aisle and finding a seat, and that the ride might be bumpy at times. Expectations might include remaining seated for the trip and using an inside voice while on the bus. And the perspective of others might include being tired, being overwhelmed, being excited, being scared, or having fun. There are 3 types of sentences used in scripted story writing: descriptive, perspective, and directive. Descriptive sentences objectively define anticipated events, such as where the situation occurs, who is involved, what they are doing, and why. Perspective sentences describe the internal status of the person or persons involved, including their thoughts, feelings, or moods. Directive sentences are individualized statements of desired responses, stated in a positive manner. They may begin with, "I can try," or "I will work on." There should not be too many directives in the story. A scripted story should have 3 to 5 descriptive and perspective sentences for each directive sentence. Be sure to write the story in the first person, on the child's level, using pictures that supplement the text that also fit within the child's skill level.
You already did it? Okay.
So I would say that these would also be beneficial for families to use at home as well. How can we help families tailor stories to meet their child's needs?
I think it's really important to, again, have that relationship with the family so that they can identify where they might be having some troubles. So it could be that they changed caregivers, so their transition from home to the family child care setting has been a little bit difficult at times. So we can prepare those children a little bit more ahead of time for what that transition is going to look like and who they're going to see.
We could even help families. We could hold workshops. We could send home packets to help kind of document it, send them to the CSEFEL website.
Yeah. Some centers do a little writing class, like they say, like, let's do it as a group, and every family makes their own little book, and then they go home, and then they report back the next day. How did it go? Did your kid like it? Yeah.
That's great. Well, now it's time for an activity session. Take this time to brainstorm elements of a scripted story that you could write for the child you thought about in the first activity. Begin by determining the social situation you want to address. Maybe it's asking how to play with someone, using an inside voice, or transitioning from the outside to the inside. Then try to write at least one of each type of sentence, descriptive, perspective, and directive, to get you started. And remember, information about writing a scripted story can be found on page 18 of your handout materials. And when we return, we'll continue our discussion of pyramid model strategies. See you soon. So, welcome back. And Mackenzie, we were talking about using names in scripted stories, and you have some additional information that you want to share with folks.
It's important that we are creating our nurturing and responsive relationships with our children and that we know them very well. So it's very important to individualize. If you're targeting a specific skill for a specific child, if using their name in the story might cause them additional anxiety about the event that you're speaking about in the story, it may be better to use a different name.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Well, children often engage in challenging behavior because they don't have the language to accurately express their emotions. Emotional vocabulary or emotional literacy is the words a child uses to express feelings and reactions to events. Children need to be taught an emotional vocabulary. And why do we need to help children develop an emotional vocabulary?
There are so many emotions that we experience on a daily basis as adults. I mean, there's thousands of them, and we can experience them all in 15 minutes. Imagine having that same experience as a small child. And there are so many emotions more than mad, sad, and happy. It's very vital for these children to be able to identify what is going on in their body and how they feel so that they're able to cope with those emotions.
Well, let's go to a video to see children engaged in some activities that will help increase their emotional vocabulary.
play a game, and it's a matching game. And what we need to do is we need to find matching pictures.
I remember that game.
You remember that? Is it like memory?
Yeah.
It's almost like that, but it's going to be faces. So we got to match our faces. And if we pick one, I'm able to show you. See, this is the mad face. And this is a tired face. Are they the same? Nope, they're different. So what we need to do is flip them back over, and we need to find this matching faces, and we're gonna take turns doing that, okay? Hold on, Elijah. Wait, Jordan. Wait. Okay, ready? Shanta Marie, you can go first. Okay, turn them over so our friends can see them. Are they the same?
Which one is
They are different. What are they? Show our friends what they are so they can remember.
Mad, sad face.
Mad and sad face. Are those the same or are they different? They're different. Okay, we can put them back in. So you have silly.
What is that?
And sad. Are they the same?
No.
They're different, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to flip these back over. Okay, Creeper? Elijah, your turn. What do you have? What do you have? Show my friends. What do you have? You have a match. Wow.
Goody.
Hey, guess what? Wait, Elijah. You know what you can do? You get to take another turn. So these are your matches. You put them on the side. Now you can pick 2 more cards.
I don't know.
I'm pretty happy right
That's not the same.
What is that? Silly and surprise. Are those the same or are they different?
They're different.
They are different. Okay, turn those back over. Good job, Elijah. It is your turn.
Happy you had a nice nap and you
And it's mad.
How do you feel today?
You have
Sometimes I think
sick and scared. Are those the same or are they different?
They're different.
They are different. Okay, we're gonna turn.
It's called feeling bingo. Let's look at our cards here. What do they look like? What do you see on your cards?
Come on, Matt.
What is that one? Oh, she doesn't feel good. She's sick. Oh, she feels sick. Let me. Oh, that's. What is that?
That's mad.
Mad. Yeah, mad face. Mad face. When Mrs. Nickpon pulls up a card, you're going to put one of your shapes on the same one that matches that card, that feeling, okay? I'm wondering, I'm feeling pretty happy right now myself. How do you feel today?
I feel.
Can you show me where?
They're different.
They're different. Happy.
You feel happy too? Kalai, do you know how you feel? How do you feel today? Oh, you're happy. You had a nice nap and you feel happy today. Valentina, how do you feel today?
I've been sleeping.
Sometimes I think you feel a little shy. Remember, you're a little shy, aren't you, sometimes? But today, how do you feel?
I'm a little shy.
I am tired.
How do you feel?
What's that?
You're worried about something.
Happy.
You're feeling happy? When I draw a card, ooh, which one do I have? Which one is this one? I got a new.
I'm a sad one.
It says.
I'm a sad one.
It said it's worried.
I'm worried.
Worried. Do we have a worried one? So we picked worried and we picked scared. Sometimes, what do we worry about?
Scared.
What do we worry about?
Monster.
Monsters? We worry about monsters? Do we really have monsters around? No.
What's this gonna be scary?
It's going to be, monster movies are scary, aren't they?
What do you see on here? But what do you see? There's what on these? People. Hearts. Let's talk about this. What do you see?
Shoes. Faces. Sad.
And I'm going to roll this in my hands, and I'm going to let it go. Okay. So we said this is what? A kite. Who knows what you do with a kite? You fly it. Okay. So I heard some really good words. The wind flies it, right? So what do you do? Tell me how you use a kite.
Pull it and then fly. Then you run.
Okay. the ground or does it go up tall? It goes up tall.
If you let it go, it's going to fly up to the sky.
Well, don't do that.
And then go blow up.
No, I don't think it'll blow up.
The sky?
When you have a kite, is that a fun thing to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When you are having fun, you feel what?
The wind.
You feel the wind, okay.
And my brother, Juju, broke mine.
Oh, how did that make you feel?
Sad.
I'd be sad and mad. I would be sad and mad if my kite broke too. Were you able to fix it?
No.
You didn't?
I was able to fix it.
You were able to fix it?
I'm a good fixer.
You are a good fixer. And when you fixed it, how'd you feel? You felt happy again. So listen, Zarmani, if I gave you a kite, how would you feel?
Happy.
Yeah, you'd be very happy. Ready? Oh my. What is this?
A mad face.
Okay, I need to see your mad face, Zarmani. Yeah, that's a good mad face. Now, how does your heart feel when you're mad? If your heart feels mad too? Oh, but Dallas, can I see your mad face? Oh, that is mad. What would make you mad? What could make you mad?
If the kite flies away, you feel mad.
If the kite flies away, you would feel mad. Yeah. Now, let me show you this picture. What do you think is happening here? Yeah, what does that mean when you're... Okay, she's mad. Is she playing with anybody?
No, she's by herself.
She's by herself. So, Zarmani, turn around. You're telling me, and Dallas, look. You're telling me that if you are by yourself, you could be mad or angry. Does this sound right? Angry?
Yeah, I'm angry.
Angry. And when you're angry, Dallas, turn around. Look at me. When you're angry, what are some things you could do so you feel better?
Give a hug.
You could give a hug when you feel angry. Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going to have you go find another area for now, and then we can do this again later, today, this afternoon. And if you want, we can do the pizza together. You want to do the pizza with me? Okay, get your pizza out. Smell it. Fill that belly with air. Okay, it's hot. Blow it. Really hard. Blow it really hard so you can eat it. Okay, now eat it. I'm going to give you another piece. It's very hot. Smell it. And blow it out. Cool it off. Make it cool. It's hot. It's really hot and you want it in your belly. Okay. Okay. Come give me a hug.
This is happy. This is sad. This is mad. You see the eyebrows? Are you mad today? This is tired. Are you tired today? Are you happy today? Or are you sad today? Are you happy? You want to put it right down? Oh, you're going to put it right on there? That's fine. Okay.
What great strategies. Now, in that last clip, we saw the child put the sticker on the face in the chart, not in the column. What are your thoughts?
She could put it where she would like. She identified that she was feeling happy and she put it on the happy face. And that's okay.
That's okay.
Yep,
So
she's still learning.
Our providers may need to reframe and think about their expectations. And then thinking about that, we didn't see a match made and we didn't have anyone win bingo.
Winning and losing isn't the concept that you're trying to teach. You're trying to teach them what to recognize in certain feelings and how their face might look and what their body might feel like. So it's not really about the winning and losing piece of it. That's the beauty of this age, is they haven't necessarily learned about what competition looks like. So you can play games like that and they're able to learn those skills through those methods.
Okay. Okay. Well, in addition to having an emotional vocabulary and being able to identify their own emotions, it's also important for children to be able to recognize feelings in others. So what does this entail?
Recognizing feelings in others is something that I think we continually work on even as adults, but it is a foundational skill that you can start to teach in children through ways of having them look at how their friends are feeling when something might happen between them. So going back to the scripted story with Tucker and his friends are going to have a specific face when he kicks or yells at them, and so sometimes it's very helpful for teachers to identify how their friends are feeling. Oh no, my friend is crying, he's hurt, he feels sad that you kicked him. Oh, I wonder what we could do for him because he feels sad.
Well, another tool available to you are easy-to-use guides called book nooks. CSEFEL has developed these guides to provide teachers, caregivers, and parents hands-on ways to embed social emotional skill-building activities into everyday routines. Tell us some more about book nooks.
Book nooks are wonderful. They're very easy to use. They identify several lessons that you can use that are for those specific books around building either emotional literacy, teaching friendship skills. It can be any number of social and emotional strategies, identifying feelings, friendship skills, how to share. They're wonderful, and they give specific lessons on what you can do through art or through manipulatives or through group play.
Now, at what age can we use or should we start using book nooks with children?
Some of the books on the book list on the CSEFEL website go as young as 2. And so if you use resources such as the New York State Early Learning Guidelines, you should be able to formulate your lesson plans around that kind of a book for that age group.
And how about ways that we can use book nooks with families?
They're easy handouts that you can send home, that you can send the book home. One of the things that we do at RCN is a lending library, so you can have a social and emotional lending library for the children to take home to use with their families.
I know some schools, whenever they start a parent activity night, they start by reading one of the books and giving an example of how it can be used, and then they send them home with the families.
Very nice, very nice. Well, let's go to this video where we see a provider who uses some ideas from the Glad Monster, Sad Monster book nook to help children increase their emotional vocabulary.
It says Glad Monster, Sad Monster. What do you see? A happy monster. Let me see your happy face. If I cover this up, what do you see?
Sad.
Nyla, sit right here on the number 3.
A sad face.
Sad face. What do you think this book is about?
A sad face and a happy face.
Should we find out?
Yeah.
You are going to be monsters. Who wants to be a monster?
Me.
Okay. Kevin, what color?
Red.
Because why? It's your
favorite color.
Favorite color. Okay. Remember, we're going to put it in your lap, and don't break it, because this is very important. Okay? Did you hear my words? Okay.
That's the
Ashton. No, there's no girl or boy colors. Glad monster, sad monster. The yellow monster says, open birthday presents, playing ball, slurping ice cream, and dancing with my friends makes me glad. Now, this, try on your mask. What makes you glad? Kevin, what makes you glad?
Yeah, going to Sky Zone.
When you go to Sky Zone? Let me see your happy, glad face in your mask. I love how you're putting it right in front of you. Nice job, high five. John Terrell, what makes you happy and glad?
Outside.
Okay, let me see how you would look. Yeah. What makes you happy and glad?
Love to play with animals.
Liking to play with animals. The blue monster says, Kevin, waving goodbye, watching my snowman melt, losing my big balloon, and having it rain on a parade day makes me sad. Let's see how he looks. Pretend to be a sad blue monster. Let me see your sad blue monster. Good, Dallas. He looks very sad. Kevin, can I see a sad monster? I need a sad cat. Oh, that is sad. The orange monster says, listen to a terrible thunderstorm. Imagine what's hiding under my bed. Seeing little creepy crawly things and being chased by grumpy growly things worries me. Can you act like you're a worried monster? Put your monster mask on and show me what does it look like when you're worried.
You worry about your mom.
Are you worried? Yeah. Do you look worried? A little worried? Chantrell, are you worried? Yeah. Just like Orange Mask, he's worried. The purple monster says being upside down, making funny faces, wearing big monster clothes, and gonking around makes me feel silly. Can you pretend to be the silly purple monster? Ah, yes, that is silly. Being laughed at when I fall down and having someone knock over my blocks makes me angry. Oh, can you put on your angry red monster face? Put the mask on. Let me see you're angry. Somebody knocked your block. Yeah. The green monster says, growling, showing my sharp white teeth, waving my hands in the air and saying, shoo, shoo, shoo.
What is that?
And boo, boo, makes me very scared. You're scared. Someone scared you. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to be different monsters. Are you ready for this? Let's see who remembers. Let me see your angry monster. Let me see your silly monster. Let me see your sad monster. Let me see your worried monster. Very good monsters. Now, would you like to take your monster home and show your mommy your different monsters?
Just love it. So on pages 34 and 35 of your handout materials, you'll find a book nook for the rainbow fish that can be used to help foster friendships. Now, a complete list of book nooks can be found on the CSEFEL website, which can be found in the resource section of your handouts. Just be aware that some of the books on the list may be out of print, so they may be more difficult to locate if you don't already have a copy. And now it is time for another activity session. We just saw many examples of how you could help children develop their emotional vocabulary. However, the possibilities for this are endless. Take a moment to look at the feelings poster on page 44 of your handouts. Then brainstorm ways you could use the faces on the chart to help expand the emotional vocabulary for the children that you work with. And when we return, we'll discuss more Tier 2 strategies that you can use to help curb challenging behaviors. We'll see you soon. Welcome back. Children are curious, inquisitive, and sometimes seem to always be on the go. They're excited to learn and eager to move on to the next thing. Because of this, when getting directions, they often remember the last thing you say. If you tell a child, "Don't run," they may only hear "run." So they do, and that can lead to adult frustration and possible injury. That's why it's important to provide children with clear directions and instructions by stating what you want them to do. Let's go to this video to see how to transform some common "don't" statements.
Don't run. Use walking feet. Stop yelling. Use your inside voice. Don't sit in the stroller. The strollers are for the dolls to ride in. Don't draw on the wall. We color on paper. No fighting! Keep your hands on your own body. Ugh, don't pick your nose. Go get a tissue. Don't ignore me. Please put your hands down and listen to my words. Don't grab toys. Ask for a turn and wait. Stop climbing on the furniture. Chairs are for sitting. Don't slide like that. We go down the slide on our bottom, feet first.
So why else is it important for us to tell children what to do?
Because a lot of times we use too many don'ts, and so we really need to replace those skills of don't with do. And it's easy to have positive reinforcement when we're telling them what we want them to do. We have to teach them the skills and teach them what to do.
And is there ever a time when it's acceptable to use don'ts or negative commands?
Absolutely, when there's a safety concern. So our top priority for all of us is that we need to keep our children safe. So when it's a safety concern, using the words stop and don't are very important.
And do you have any advice, because we sometimes get in these habits, so for ways that we can limit our use of negatives?
Well, it goes back to what Patty was talking about before, about being aware of what we're saying and using small steps, just like at the inventory of practices. So if you would like your child to start walking more instead of running, maybe just being aware of that one phrase of don't run and thinking about saying, oh, walking feet. Oh, Mommy said, walking feet. Oh, Miss Mackenzie said, walking feet.
Mm-hmm. And there's little tips that we can use too. You can monitor yourself, right, throughout the day.
Yep, and you can also give yourself visual cues, post up what you want to say more of, so you see it, and then it's fresh in your brain.
That's great, I like that. Effective communication is also key when it comes to decreasing challenging behavior. So in addition to using positive statements, what are some of the things that we want to keep in mind when communicating instructions with young children?
We spoke about it a little bit earlier about breaking down our instructions. So if we're bringing our children in from the playground, saying, okay, everybody take your coats off, hang them up in your cubby, go wash your hands, and then sit down at the table for snack. We look at that as only 4 steps, but there's really so many steps within those 4 steps. Mm-hmm. Unzipping, taking your arms out of your coat, hanging your coat up in your cubby, walking over to the sink, turning on the water, getting the soap, rinsing your hands. There's so many steps just within those 4 components. So breaking that down and then giving the kids a little bit of wait time to process it. So, oh, stop, take your coat off. Oh, okay, hang it in your cubby. Okay, let's go wash our hands.
Okay, and the use of encouragement is important.
I see you're listening. Oh, you knew exactly what I needed you to do. You took your coat off and you put it in your cubby. And being as descriptive as possible is also imperative for those children to understand what they're doing right.
Yeah, and you can just feel that excitement and that they're proud that, oh, right, I've got this. Well, let's walk through an example. We have toddler Jazz, who keeps touching toddler Clark's artwork. Clark keeps saying no. So I step in and I tell Jazz, don't touch Clark's art. What can I say to Jazz instead of saying no, or to tell her what to do, I should say?
I would say, you can keep your hands down, hands at our sides. Art is for looking at. And oh, I noticed you really like his artwork. Eyes are for looking. You can tell him, I really like your picture.
And then what type of encouragement can I use with Jazz when I see that she's doing what I've asked her to do?
Oh, you see how your friend really liked how you complimented their art? Wow, and you listened to my words. You knew what you had to do. Oh, you did it. You did it all by yourself.
Yeah. And they do. They love to hear their names in positive situations. That's really important. Well, if communicating in a positive manner doesn't apply or work in a specific situation, another strategy you can try is to implement is teaching and using problem-solving skills. At what age can we begin using problem-solving skills with children?
I mean, you can start as young as 3 just by identifying that the issue that they're having is a problem so that they're able to put context to what having a problem actually means. So if children are tugging at a toy, you can hold on to the toy and be like, oh no, there's a problem. You both want this toy.
Right, instead of coming in as the answer to the problem, the adult, right? We want to teach them how to A, identify the problem, and then B, start working on some solutions. So even kids as young as 2 can start to work on some simple solutions using picture cues or examples from a story.
Yeah, and the best time to teach the steps, and you mentioned this before, Mackenzie, is not in the middle of a conflict.
No, usually the children are in some type of a crisis mode at that point. Their emotions are escalated, they're engaged in a tantrum, their emotions are high, your emotions are high as the adult. It's so much easier to have a small group session or talk about how problem solving is within your expectations within your classroom when everybody is calm and able to listen and reflect.
Yeah, I always say when you get pulled over for speeding, it's not the time to teach somebody about defensive driving or proper driving skills.
Right.
You're going to do that in a classroom when you're taking defensive driving. Right. Nothing's happening. You're not worked up or worried about something.
Right. And it's important too for all of the caregivers to be practicing these same skills and strategies.
And they're very simple. That's the best part about it, is they're so simple and easy to implement.
Well, CSEFEL has developed problem solver steps that you can teach children, and they can be found on page 45 of your handout materials. They include determine what the problem is, think of some solutions, figure out what might happen if you try the solution, and give the solution a try. So for younger children or children with limited language skills, what can we do to help them not only determine what the problem is, but how to express it?
I think that using visual cues is very important. One of the pieces that the CSEFEL website provides us is the solution cards. So those give accurate depictions of specific problems that can occur within classrooms or family child care settings and what you can do in order to solve the problem.
Well, CSEFEL has developed solution cards to help children remember step 2 of problem solving, which is think of a solution. And these can be found on pages 46 through 54 of your handouts. Now let's go to this video to see the different solution cards.
Get a timer. Ask nicely. Ignore. Play together. Say, please stop. Say, please. Share. Trade. Wait and take turns. Get a teacher.
So as we saw, the cards are simple words and pictures on paper. How do we make these meaningful to children and remind them that these are our possible solutions?
Well, I think it goes back to what we've been discussing in lots of sections of tonight about is intentional teaching. You can do several things with these cards. You can make a book out of them. You can create a solution kit for when children have problems and say, oh, it looks like we have a problem. We should go get the solution kit. And those, again, are intentional teaching opportunities that you can introduce in small group activity or large group activity so that the children understand the components and understand how to use them.
So when children get to step number 3, what would happen if? What are some questions we should encourage children to ask themselves?
Well, I think it's important for them to ask themselves, is my friend going to be upset with my solution? Am I going to be upset with the solution? So they're using their emotional literacy skills to be able to identify how they or their friends will be feeling.
And then step 4, the child tries a solution and it doesn't work. So he gets frustrated. How do we handle that?
I think labeling their feelings and really letting them know that it's okay that they feel that way. And then, as the adult, being able to facilitate perhaps another idea or another solution that may work.
Let's go to this video where we can see a provider helping some children solve a problem.
Here.
But he really wants the yellow ball. What can we do?
Now it's full.
So he really wants the yellow ball. Will you give it to him when you're done? Can you wait till he's done?
Yeah.
Do you want the blue ball till he's done? Or can you trade?
It's mine.
You want to trade?
Here.
Wait. Can you give him the blue ball? Joey, do you want the blue ball or do you not want it? You want this?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for trading.
Okay, so where was step 3? What would happen if?
I think that it wasn't necessarily identified, but we saw what would happen if, because the one child began crying as the other child took both the yellow and the blue ball.
So what are some of your other thoughts about what we just saw in this interaction? And you know the teacher and you know the children.
I think that it's very important not to get stuck in the steps, because I think it's something that we naturally do just in and of ourselves, and when we solve a problem, that we don't actually have to think to ourselves what would happen if. It happens naturally. And as we continue to do these strategies and practice these strategies, it becomes inherent and something that becomes part of us and how we implement it throughout the day.
Practice, practice, practice.
Practice, practice.
Well, and knowing what to say. I mean, I think that the kit really does help grown-ups as well as kids figure out, like, what are the other options here? What can we try?
Right. Grab your ring.
And like, just try one. Try any of them.
Yeah.
You never know.
And
the kid didn't
trying.
even want the ball. Like, it's just, let's help figure this out and diffuse it.
Nice. Well, tonight we've shared basic pyramid model information and tools with you, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more to learn about the pyramid model and how to implement it to fidelity in your program. That's why New York State has put together a master cadre of trainers who are ready to teach you about implementing all aspects of the pyramid model. You can find a list of the verified pyramid model trainers by referring to pages 55 to 57 of your handouts. We encourage you to reach out to them for more information. And for a list of all the pyramid trainings happening across the state, please go to the web address on your screen. Now, you may be thinking that all of this looks and sounds great, but will it really work for me and my program? Well, we recently had the opportunity to meet Lori Elston, a parent at the Rochester Child First Network, or RCN. She graciously shared her family story with us. Let's listen.
My son Charlie was diagnosed with autism at 27 months, and we had about 2 years of home therapy when his home therapist came to me and said he really needs to be in a 5-day-a-week program. So we put him in a little program at another school that was 2 days a week for an hour. and he hated it. It was hard on him, but we thought this is what we need to do, and let's just stick with it. Someone had mentioned RCN, so we came in for a visit. Charlie loved it. He walked into the classroom, he started playing with the toys, the kids were coming up and hugging me, the teachers were welcoming us and would stop the class to ask Charlie his name and bring him into the group, and every kid just looked so full of joy and so happy, and every teacher in every class knew every kid's name. And the minute we walked in, we just knew this is what we wanted for Charlie. We pulled up in the parking lot and he had a complete meltdown. To the point where when I picked him up, he threw himself down on the ground and we both went tumbling. So I scooped him up because I knew we had to do it, and we walked in the front door. And the minute we walked in the front door, people just came up to us and took Charlie and handed me a tissue and helped me wipe down and helped me gather myself. And we walked Charlie into the classroom and he was screaming. And Mackenzie grabbed him and just talked to him.
So we traveled over to the book area and we found a Seek and Find alphabet book. And Charlie held that and had that for the rest of the day.
He's gonna do it, he's gonna be fine.
I took pictures and I emailed them to his mom during the program so that she had something to look at to know that he was okay.
It was a struggle in the beginning. Charlie did not want to go to school. He didn't want to get dressed for school. There are times I brought him to school in his pajamas. He didn't want to wear his coat to school. There are times I brought him in school without his coat. He didn't want to put his shoes on. There are times we brought him to school without his shoes. But the first year and a half, we did a lot of work as a team.
We worked a lot on transitions for him. So Charlie had a picture, a visual schedule that was just for him, that identified what was next for him. He needed a very structured, predictable routine. So visuals were a very good thing to begin with him. He had a transition tool. So sometimes he would take a letter or a book with him to therapy, and that would be really helpful for him.
I talked to his mother, Lori, and I said, how about you bring in a snack that he enjoys, one we know he enjoys. We brought that in and we put it at a table next to the table he would typically be sitting at, and he agreed. And then it got to the point where we thought, okay, let's start the sharing portion. Charlie, can I have a goldfish? So he would give it to a teacher. Little by little, towards the end of the year, we had him picking a friend to come sit with him at his table. Sometimes we'd find him sitting at the actual table, just random happenstance, he would just join the group. Then we started noticing he would start coming to small group, as long as he did it in his time.
You could just see that eventually when I dropped him off, he was happy. And it would be so cute. I would be waiting in the hallway to drop him off at class, and all of his little friends would be in the doorway and they would be dancing and singing and going, Charlie's here, Charlie's here. And as a mother of a child on the spectrum, one of your biggest worries is my son gonna have friends? The wonderful thing about this program is it doesn't just help the children that have special needs, it helps the community kids learn how to interact with everybody.
And one of the things that was vital for Charlie's success was building a relationship with him and letting him know that no matter what kind of a day we had, we were going to greet him the same way and love him the same way the next day.
I can't even explain the level of change that I saw in this child. He was participating, he was sharing, he was learning cooperative play skills, he would hug friends, he would hold friends' hands. It wasn't every day, but he was doing it.
Charlie is an amazing, amazing kid. He just keeps me in awe. His interest in things in life and his ability to grasp those things that most 4- and 5-year-olds would never have any kind of concept about, he knows and he understands.
He has so much pride in what he's doing. He walks into school and he's happy to be here, but he's also proud of himself that he can accomplish this, that he's made it through the day, that he's hanging out with his friends, and he sees what kids do and he wants to do it. He wants to play and he wants to connect, and it doesn't come natural. I know our journey is just starting, and I know we have many years ahead of us of opportunities for improvement, but at the same time, we have so much hope.
Wow. Wow, Mackenzie. Well, we are out of time for tonight, but your questions are important to us. And if we were unable to answer your question live, someone will certainly follow up with you. Patty and Mackenzie, thank you for being here tonight to share your expertise with us. We'd also like to thank Rob Corso, the Elston family, and the staff and families at RCN. And finally, thank you for your participation. Remember, promoting social emotional development is not easy, and there are no quick fixes to challenging behavior. Every child will present what you might consider a challenging behavior from time to time, but by implementing the pyramid model strategies in your program, you will have a framework to carry out practices needed to promote young children's social and emotional competence and effectively address challenging behavior. Reach out to a pyramid model trainer for more training so you can make strides in your program. Have a good night.